tons of fruit. Got a few sticks propping up limbs, but what do we do with all this fruit, and why are the fruit so many and why are they small? In this video, we're gonna talk thinning fruit and properly pruning a peach tree all at the same time. We're gonna be pruning a peach tree, a young one, and this one to maintain shape. We're gonna compare this tree to pear trees that were pruned and see how much more or less sagging there is, and how fertile are these peach tree seeds when you plant them. Will they grow the exact same peach? We're gonna take it up a notch. Be a slightly different wall. I'm curious to know if I'm gonna get right down here. You can see that ladybug larvae. Bam! Pull the thing down like a monkey. Now let's start off talking about the Cresthaven peach tree. The peach tree has yellow flesh. Peaches either have white flesh or yellow. White, it's my understanding, have a tendency to be a little sweeter, but this is a wonderful, wonderful peach tree. She's about 5 years old, and this year she just absolutely exploded. Now, if you watch my videos, you know I'm a big fan on pruning trees, pruning limbs to where they're right over your noggin. I don't want to be 70 years old up on a ladder picking fruit when, with some basic pruning techniques, I can keep the fruit down low, not down in eyeball level. You want it over your noggin because the fruit's going to bring those limbs down anyways. This unpruned, unmaintained from a pruning point of view, these limbs could not handle the weight of the fruit, and I lost of one particular very valuable limb that would have grown laterally. So my approach to pruning is just to start at one side. Assess, is the limb going up into la-la land like that limb right there? Well, then she needs to be topped. We want to promote limbs going laterally. So whether up high or down low, you start at one side and you just say, if you're pointing downward, going crossways through the tree or shooting up into la-la land, we need to do some pruning, and we'll be doing some thinning at the same time. I'm up on a ladder, 2 steps. I'm gonna keep this limb here because it's going laterally real nice. So all this is gonna get cut off. It goes a little ways above the camera view. Before I just make one cut here, I'm gonna take some weight off. So you're gonna have limbs falling off and you can hear the fruit. Make a nice clean cut. This stuff is really expensive. I think latex paint works to heal or to cover that wound. Because we're in a very high humid location, I'm concerned about canker or other diseases or insects being able to get into cuts that are very large. We got our lateral branch. Now we're going to get rid of some of the branches that are hanging straight down. By pruning off those branches, we're also thinning the fruit. So now we got a branch that's going laterally. We got a little bit of fruit remaining. This one's kind of long. So this branch here, that one right there is growing nice and laterally, and this one would be over the noggin if it wasn't being sagged down. This branch here is really pointing downwards, and I'm not really impressed with it. Instead of getting rid of that whole limb, which would be cutting it back here at the Y, what we can do is just shorten it. Where there's a branch growing right above that's going back upwards, and that's what we want to keep. I'm saying there's 15 and 15. There's 30 fruit on this one limb alone. The red ones, like this, will keep. I think they'll soften. The rest of these are going to the compost pile. A little touch-up pruning. This branch is going totally downhill, a lot of weight on it. This one's going sort of downhill, so we're gonna cut it back here, shorten. Like this one was quite long, we're just gonna shorten it, and that's part of that thinning process. I am going to start doing a little more of a hard pruning. Downhill, want to promote it up. This branch is completely going downhill, 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 downhill. This one's not looking good. This one's not looking good. And you start seeing now with support, that'll be next, that bamboo pole with a little something there. With some support, we're gonna get this girl right here and start promoting our limbs going over us. But you see this limb here? That's shooting up in the air, so guess what? So we'll just continue that method around the tree. We either take control of its pruning now and thin fruit, so what's left over is larger and the tree is healthier. We don't want broken limbs. Take care of the tree by doing some moderate pruning just to do this corner, which is maybe 20% of the circumference of the tree. We finished our pruning and thinning about a week ago. Big storms came through, then it was super hot, so let's catch up to what heavy pruning and heavy thinning looks like. What we've done is sheared off everything that was shooting up into the sky. We healed these broken branches, healed them by cutting them flush and putting some pruning ointment on the open wood. They're starting to turn a wonderful color, and by the way, by pruning and pruning vigorously, we're also getting a nice growth coming out of the plant. All the tips are showing wonderful, wonderful growth. You can see the center of the tree is nice, open and airy. We want that to decrease chance of disease, particularly fungus, since it's been so wet and rainy. We want good air circulation. We have fruit that is now concentrated near a heavier branch. These fewer fruit in number will likely get much larger than if we didn't do the thinning. Ignore the ratty deer fencing. We just put up a really nice 550-foot deer fence around the property. So we need to take down this ratty stuff. We are taking volunteers for that. This bamboo works awesome as support. You leave a little side little node on them for the wide part, but the main trunk here, these last a good 2-3 years. What I want to show here is no matter where we go around this tree, all the fruit is right here at picking height. We want to be mindful of not having branches too damn long away from the center of the plant, because even if they're heavy, as they get longer and fruit ends up on the ends next year, they're just going to be sagging down, down, down. Side note on the height of a peach tree and productivity. This tree got hammered really good, but this tree got hammered nothing like the peach tree in my mother's backyard. My mom's 93 years old, and even at age 90, she would go out to that peach tree and just lop everything off of it, all the branches, and there was just so much fruit on that peach tree. She still got many fruit. Her peach tree can't be any more than 7 feet tall total it's got to be at least 20 years old, big fat trunk with just a couple of branches, kind of half-ass sickly looking, coming out of it. But she's so vigorous, that peach tree, mom too, that new growth comes out and it flowers really beautifully, just nothing but pink, and it sets tons and tons of fruit. We want a nice canopy on our peach tree, so we're not doing the hack and whack that mom does. But her peach tree is an example of just severe, I mean, mom just mowed that tree down every year, and it sets tons of flowers and tons of fruit. Ask me about Happy. So we're disposing of the waste now like a week after we cut it. There's a full-blown, full wheelbarrows worth of waste from the one peach tree already here. Got a second one in here. These were heavy branches filled with fruit. It's just this one bucket. I basically scraped up the fruit off the ground. This could have been at least 3-4 buckets of peach that we pulled off of that tree. So how do you keep a peach tree from getting ornery? And that is to start a pruning method when it's young. This tree is only a couple years old, growing very vigorously, and now in July is a good time to give it a good pruning as she's thriving in our hot weather. But is all this growth the growth that we want? Check this out. When I'm trimming trees, I always start at the bottom and work up. This is a young tree, so we're gonna start at the very, very bottom. You gotta notice a real important no-go, and that is a second stem coming out of here, and that branch, I'm gonna call it a branch, I just said stem, that branch is tallest part of this tree. It is likely that this growth is coming from the root stock. The graft joint is right around where this plant is coming, where this branch is coming up. That's just a big no-go because we have our main trunk right here. All this growth, all that growth is taking energy away from this tree. The roots are feeding all of this. So I'm very late to pruning, call it what it is. We want to take this branch completely off. A nice clean cut is very important because it's actually pretty damn big. So overall, this peach tree has very nice branching up here at maybe 3-4 foot high, and this is what we're going to use to have the branches start going out sideways. So these lower branches, wonderful growth, but we're not going to have branches going out at 2 foot. That's like literally a tripping hazard. So that's a lot of growth to clip. But if we don't clip it now while she's young, it's just going to grow wild and gnarly and in whatever direction she feels like going. We're going to give it some guidance. We're going to start opening up the trunk. Good, you see the trunk. See that trunk starting to open up? Now the top is going to explode with growth. So at this point, we got rid of the excess branches down low. Again, she's a very young tree, and those were the very important branches a year or two ago when she was planted. That's what was capturing the sun for photosynthesis. Great, thank you very much. But now we're going to start having her grow uphill, up high. Well, I got some weird beetles over there. I want the center area of this tree to be open. So this branch growing from this side inward at this angle is going to go. This branch is going that way, but this little, super little branch is going that way, towards the middle. coming further up the trunk. Let's go back where we started from. Oh man. So that's the after. All this plant material came off of her, and that is to promote upward and outward growth. You're gonna bite the bullet now in the summer, bite the bullet in winter. But the reason we're biting the bullet now in summer is because there's still a couple, 3 months left in growing, and we want her to focus on this growth up there. She will rebound and explode outward because she's not carrying all that other stuff. This is her structure. 4 foot high, limb going that way, limb going that way, limb going that way. That's what we want. This is a peach tree that's in a pot. I bought it from Kohler Nursery, I believe, because it was so incredibly inexpensive. We had it stationed next to the peach tree that we just pruned, and she's just gonna kind of getting tall and start busting out of the pot. Now's the time to trim these roots, and also make sure that you're working on the same structure of this potted peach tree as we did with the planted peach tree. You got a lot of growth going that way and very little growth going this way. That's going to dictate our pruning. This branch is going towards the center. This is going towards the center. And so now we kind of opened her up. I'm going to also kind of tip it. I'm going to tip prune it because she is in a pot and she's going to stress out a little bit because we just pulled her out of the ground where she's been sitting all this year. Prune off the branches from the bottom of the pot. She will go into shock. And that's why we're gonna set her in a semi-shady place for a couple of days to allow her to recover. We're also gonna make sure that when we set her in a semi-shady place, that the smaller branches are towards the sun, the larger branches are towards the back. The smaller branch towards the sun ought to recover a little better and kind of catch up in vigor to the ones in the back. Wow, I just noticed she has a fruit on her. This sucker's been sitting in a pot. I mean, I really should take this fruit off. I sort of don't have the heart to do that, but there's no reason for this potted peach tree to carry fruit. You really want the energy to go to healthy roots and healthy growth. But because it's one peach, I think I'm gonna keep it. This is a worn pear tree, and we have maintained a good, regular pruning maintenance on her. Now, there's also a difference in fruit volume. The pear tree has maybe 20 fruit on it, whereas the Cresthaven Peach had like 20,000 fruit on it. I'm exaggerating to make the point. But pears are pretty damn heavy, and what you see is this branch is springing up. This is the kefir. Again, we got branches, nice sturdy branches at the noggin, at just above head level. But we're not perfect, so we got this branch over here that's basically laying on the ground. But as long as you have that straight trunk and core branches coming off, then you're just going to be schnibbling, cutting a little bit over time. If it's like a kefir pear or a moonglow pear or a lot of mulberries, they're going to be shooting straight up. You got to sever those branches to keep her down, keep her going sideways. Fertility is right around 75%. So 75% of the seeds that we planted in some soil, seeds gathered from ripe fruit, germinated. And that's all these girls in here. They're little pots. This is a pot where no germination happened. These cheapy little plastic pots, even cut them in half. They're actually quite long. There's something called true to seed. Peach trees are not always or rarely true to seed. You probably are not going, most likely, you're not going to get the same tree as what the peach came from. You have to do some grafting. What these peach trees will do, and obviously they exploded through the little pot, so I'm gonna have to up pot them this winter when they're dormant, up pot them and put them in a proper pot. This is great stock for grafting. So we got a very vigorous tree. We know mama's vigorous. We know these girls are vigorous. High fertility, not getting the Cresthaven Peach out of these. At least I won't bank on it. Certainly wouldn't sell it as such, but it makes for awesome grafting material. Super fertile. I really hope all those peaches that I toss in the compost pile, I hope I don't have like 1,000 sprouting peaches in spring. Let's see what happens.